Hello my friends and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George and today I am thrilled to be able to present you with my review of the latest crushingly good old school death metal album from the legendary Obituary. This is entitled Dying of Everything. Now I had to show that full artwork because you just don't get to appreciate it with just that one side. You want the full misery. Even the inside is cool. This is awesome. So yes, this is Obituary, legendary Floridan death metal band, one of the true pioneers of good old-fashioned death metal, synonymous sound of the Morrisound Studios, the Scott Burns mixes. Sound has stayed very consistent over the years. This is Obituary's 11th album, I believe, which is pretty impressive for a good old-fashioned death metal album. Death metal band, in fact. These guys have been plodding on. They've had a few gaps and a few sort of lengthy periods in between albums, but since coming back in, I believe it was about 2015, with that absolutely exceptional Inked in Blood, then had that cracking self-titled album, and now we've got this Dying of Everything, which is without a doubt the biggest, boldest and best of that trilogy of releases, if you like. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved Inked in Blood. I still think it's an absolute cracking record. It's such a putrid, old, nasty Obituary album. Such great sound. Obituary, the self-titled album, I think that was a much more simplistic, shorter, sharper, punchier kind of release. This has a lot more depth to it. This is a much bolder, broader, bigger sound. The songs are lengthier and a little bit more filled, more saturated. But you get some incredible tracks here, I must say. I think you've got 10 tracks in total, and there is not a bad track on this album. I mean, just look at that artwork. That is just so perfect. Musically, it's fantastic. Of course, lineup-wise, these guys have remained pretty consistent, certainly over the last few years, with John Tardy on vocals. The Man, his iconic voice, sounds just as good as it did way back with the likes of Cause of Death and Slowly We Rot. Then we've got Donald Tardy on drums, crushing it. Terry Butler, one of the legendary bassists, not to be confused with Geezer Butler, of course, but Terry Butler, who's been in the likes of Death and 6 Feet Under and Inhuman Condition Massacre, all these different outfits. Then we've got Ken Andrews Jr. on guitars and Trevor Perez on guitars as well. So, good lineup, solid musicians there. An absolute cracker, as I say. We kick off with Barely Alive, which is a brilliant way to start the album. It's steeped in that classic signature Obituary sound and style. This, it just harks right back to the likes of Cause of Death, or The End Complete, or The World Demise. You've just got signature Obituary stamped all over this. Low, groovy, doom and infected death metal riffs. Absolutely love it. Cracking opening track there, as I say, Barely Alive. Into The Wrong Time. A little bit of a different track, the pace is a bit different. Still instantly identifiable as being an Obituary bruiser. Without a Conscience, a superb, absolutely superb track. Probably one of my 2 or 3 album highlights. Certainly, it has one of those riffs, and you'll know what I mean if you like thrash or groove or death metal. One of those riffs where it has so much crunch and so much intoxicating groove, you just stop what you're doing and you have to headbang along to it. You just can't not. It's infectious. And it's got one of those mega chugging riffs. Absolutely love it. Then we've got War. A superb track, complete with the sounds of jet aircraft and guns and explosions. A really good Obituary track. And what I like about that, certainly about John Tardy's vocals and his lyricism, he has a very unique sort of vocal phrasing. It's like short lines. Sometimes it doesn't really sort of appear to mean very much at all, but it's just short verse, the same words we've got repeated. It's really interesting. It's quite unique. Kind of in a way reminds me of Lemmy and Motorhead at times, but maybe that's just me, just because Lemmy was a great vocal phraser, lyricist with short phrases. Dying of Everything, a brilliant, worthwhile title track, absolutely killer, some really crushing riffs. I will say Donald's drumming is phenomenal throughout. Terry Butler's bass tone is monstrous, it's so low and visceral. My Will to Live, that is one of my other, definitely in my top 3 favourite tracks of this album. Again, you've got one of those killer riffs. Absolute chug fest, love it. Not too fast, not too slow, just that mid-paced, classic crushing death metal. By the Dawn, another great track, as is Weaponize the Hate. We get a really good double blow to close the album with Torn Apart and Be Warned. Be Warned, nasty, menacing, crushing visceral riffs. As I say, not a bad track on this album. A very worthy album of adorning that classic, iconic Obituary crest. Absolutely love it. Not a bad track on here. If you're looking for some good old-fashioned death metal, if you're an Obituary fan, this is not going to disappoint. This is absolutely start to finish, reliable, quite easily palatable as well. It's not overly brutal or anything like that, not in terms of some of the more modern brutal death metal bands or more modern extreme metal bands, the likes of Undeath or Sanguisugabogg. They're not for everyone. This sort of death metal that we get from Obituary sits quite comfortably alongside the likes of Death, for example, or even Cancer, those classic death metal bands, Memoriam, where it's a little bit more palatable. You could enjoy it if you were a Thrash fan, or if you were not quite into the really brutal stuff. But it's heavy and it's nasty. Obituary, Dying of Everything. What are your thoughts and opinions on this absolutely magnificent new album? Seriously good. Probably at this early stage in the year, it's definitely within my top 10, but it may stay well in there until the closing of the year, but who knows. So what are your thoughts on this album? If you're not familiar with it, you really must check it out. I really do implore. It is a fantastic album. Weirdly enough though, although it's out on Relapse Records, I did actually have a bit of difficulty getting hold of a copy of this album. In the end, I managed to get it on HMV online, but for a while it was sold out or unavailable on Amazon. There weren't many sellers on eBay, but if they did have a copy or were selling a few, they were asking way too much money for it. So you might have to shop around for it, but it's absolutely worth it. Check it out. Let me know what you think of it. Thanks again for watching, my friends. Do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations. Feel free to like and subscribe. And as always, take care, my friends. Stay heavy.